Good morning. I'd like to call this hearing of the House Transportation Infrastructure Committee to order. Pleased to welcome everyone today, and the topic of today's discussion and hearing is opening the Northeast Corridor to private competition for the development of high-speed rail. We have some distinguished witnesses today, and we're expecting Senator Lautenberg to join us shortly. There's a vote in the Senate, and then we'll hear from some of the witnesses that we've called to hopefully provide us with some insight into achieving the objective of today's hearing, and that's to try to develop our most expansive, congested, and probably ready corridor in the United States that would be conducive to using true high-speed rail. The order of business will be as follows. We'll have opening statements by members, and then we'll turn to our witness panels as they join us. Well, let me take a few minutes and begin today's hearing by kind of reviewing where we are and where we'd like to go. Most people don't realize this, but the Northeast Corridor is one of the only properties that, and actually pieces of infrastructure that Amtrak and the government own. It's a 437-mile corridor stretching from just a few blocks from here at Union Station all the way up to Boston through the principal and most congested, heavily populated areas of the United States. The interesting thing about this corridor is that it has been available since 1971 for the development of passenger rail service. As most people don't sometimes understand, Amtrak has all of the franchise for passenger rail service in the United States. We're not talking about commuter or light rail or local transit, but intercity passenger service is a sole prerogative under existing statutes of Amtrak. But the only real corridor that they own, the infrastructure that would be conducive to developing, would be the Northeast Corridor, again, some 437 miles. Since I think you hear a number of stories from Amtrak about how ridership has improved, and overall they have gone up a small percentage in ridership, and I think it's from 27 million passengers to 29 million passengers for the entire country. That's all of their service across the land. What's very interesting is the development of so-called high-speed service in the Northeast Corridor. And unfortunately, that is not truly high speed. We're only operating about 83 miles an hour from Washington to New York, and a much slower speed, somewhere between 65 and 70 miles an hour. I'm told. I get various figures from New York to Boston, but this, in fact, is not high-speed rail. By federal statute, under the PREA law, we define high speed as 110 miles per hour average in various corridors and service around the world. And I've got a copy of a couple of, well, we've got one of these pictures. Maybe we can put that up on the screen. I've got a copy of the Shinkansen. This travels 167 miles an hour, which is about twice the speed of the Acela. The Acela top speed, we'll put a little Acela up here, which we refer to as high speed, again, is running 83 miles an hour, ironically about half the speed. Amtrak has come forward with a couple of measures in a positive vein. First, they finally designated the Northeast Corridor as a high-speed rail corridor. And that was after decades of pleading that that corridor should have that designation, and that in fact it has the greatest potential for high-speed service in the United States. That was just several months ago. After, again, a lot of chiding by this committee, myself and others who are interested in true high-speed service, Amtrak has come forward with a proposal. That proposal is to develop high-speed rail in the corridor. However, it takes 30 years, would cost $117 billion, and as their initial proposal that came forward was that would be all government money, and I know they're looking at some options. But that kind of sets the stage for today. Now, they'll tell you that they have, again, going back to the ridership numbers, that they have increased ridership substantially. Let's put the little chart up here. And this is one of the most fascinating charts I've seen that actually shows what Amtrak has done and hasn't done. Yes, we've gone from 27 million to 29 million passengers in the last year. What's interesting, in the Northeast corridor, and these figures are all from Amtrak's data provided to the committee. In 1977, the Northeast corridor had 10.6 million passengers. In 2010, again from Amtrak's report, they had 10.5 million passengers, actually down from 1977. To me, that is one of the most pitiful statements of achievement after putting billions of dollars into the corridor, to see how underutilized that service is. Another interesting point, if you look at the highlighted area, we did go up to 12.9 million passengers in 2000 in the Northeast corridor. So we've actually dropped from a peak, and that's even before 9/11. If you look at long-distance service, they went from 4 million passengers in 1977, again the first record we have from Amtrak, and we're at 4.5 million passengers, long-distance service. Another absolutely pitiful record of service. The only area in which we've had an increase in passengers is the 14.1 million passengers, which have grown from the 77 data that you have here. And again, these are some initiatives that have been partnerships that actually show that we can have some successes in providing intercity passenger rail service. But this is probably one of the most dismal records on earth for any rail service, particularly in the Northeast corridor. And again, it is not a high-speed service. The plan that the 30-year plan is not acceptable. I want to just point out and give one illustration of what we can do. And we met for an update. Every couple of years we hear from people around the world who have undertaken various projects. We put up the Virgin Rail, let's put up the Virgin Rail picture here. Met yesterday with executives of Virgin Rail, and we're going to ask them to come back and talk to us. This is an absolutely remarkable story. Let me have the statistics on Virgin Rail, but and they'll put them. We'll distribute them to all the members here. In 2004, now listen to this. In 2004, when they took over 2 lines in England put all of their money-losing routes, all their routes up for privatization, and people bid. And they bid on the service. Various corporations bid on the service, and they they had to come in with the lowest possible subsidization to the federal government there. They took two of the lines and put them up for bid, one from London to Manchester, the other one from London to Glasgow. In 2004, these lines had 14 million passengers. In 2010, they had 28.6 million passengers. They went from 14 to 28 million passengers, 100% increase. Not too dissimilar distance between London and Manchester as, say, from Washington to New York. The travel time, you see, was dramatically improved. And they told me for every dollar in infrastructure that was improved, the private sector contributed 50% or 50 cents on a dollar up to that time. This line in England went from a loss of about $250 million when it was inherited. That was a subsidization by the federal government of UK to a net positive of nearly $250 million this past year. And it's on its way to providing about $500 million a year in income. That means with no subsidization. So they've doubled the service. For the union representatives that are here and labor that's interested in what took place here, they had 2,500 approximate employees, all union, of course, when they started this. They now have 3,800 employees. They have less hassles, better wages, and again, over 1,300 more people employed with the private sector operation. So this can be done. It can be done in a congested corridor. If London isn't a congested corridor, I'd like to know what is. And you can provide, again, outstanding service and not be a burden to the taxpayers. In addition to money coming into the Treasury in UK from this operation as opposed to money going out, they paid a dividend of $50 million to Virgin Rail holders, private sector investors in this. That, to me, is a remarkable model. And we can take others from Japan and from Germany. We don't have a lot of time to go into that right now, but we'll submit some of that for the record. So I believe that we have great potential in the Northeast Corridor. The only thing standing in the way right now is Amtrak or the federal government or Congress. Let me say what we plan to do in closing. First of all, we will be offering up in the next few weeks legislation, and right now, again, we're trying to mold the final version. But right now, we're looking at taking the Northeast Corridor out of Amtrak's purview, probably transferring it to DOT. But what we would end up is putting it up, put the Northeast Corridor up for private sector bid. We would take offers from the private sector to control and operate the infrastructure and also operate the train sets. And we're looking at combinations that whatever would be the most beneficial to the taxpayer in the structure that we'll have. We believe, and we've heard, and you'll hear from today from some folks from the private sector, that you could probably do this with very little or no federal government taxpayer money. And if you're waiting for Congress to approve $117 billion over the next 30 years to bring service in 30 years to the high-speed corridor, you're going to turn blue, because it's not going to happen. But I think that we will have a plan that will attract private sector investment, that we will have a plan for development, financing, building, and operating the corridor with the private sector. We will retain the infrastructure assets for the taxpayer, and we can also return money, we believe, to the Treasury because of the incredible opportunity to increase service. And finally, we look to speed up the process of approval for developing that corridor. So that will be another element of the legislation and proposal we're coming up with. And finally, and part of what we proposed in the PREA Act is we will insist on service 2 hours or less from Washington, D.C. to downtown Manhattan. So we've assembled people today who we think can help us launch America into true high-speed rail service. We couldn't imagine, I couldn't imagine as a strong advocate of high-speed rail, probably a more disappointing start to high-speed rail in the country than we got off to. We've seen most of the proposals are not high-speed rail. We've seen Amtrak hijack 76 of 78 projects, and then I believe 20 out of 21 additional awards for basically slow-speed trains to, I said before, nowhere, I'll say somewhere, so I don't get in trouble. But this is not high-speed rail, and it's a shame that we've squandered most of $10.5 billion, and we will not have high-speed rail, particularly in the corridor that we need it the most, and the rest of the country can benefit by. As you may know, the members that are here, that more than 70% of our chronically delayed flights in this nation start in the Northeast corridor. So no matter where you come from across the country, you will benefit by the improvement of service here for high-speed rail, not to mention how you will benefit by for the taxpayers, because we can eliminate a great deal of the subsidy, in fact, actually have net positive revenue coming into the Treasury. That would be a very unique approach for Congress and for the federal government, but I think we can do it. So with those long opening remarks and taking the privilege of the chair, I wanted to lay out where we are and where we hope to go. Let me now yield to Mr. Rahal.